It is a great happiness for me to be interviewing today Dr. Zach Porcu. Dr. Porcu is a theologian trained at the Catholic University of America, an Orthodox Christian, a member of my parish, which I'm very happy about. He and his wonderful family, uh, a professor and an author. And we are here to talk about his wonderful book, Journey to Reality, Sacramental Life in a Secular Age. Dr. Porcu, thank you very much for entertaining this interview.
Thanks for having me, Father.
We live in a beautiful time in which Holy Orthodoxy is uh, coming into the intimate lives of many, many persons who live in the West for the first time. They're discovering the ancient Christian faith and they're being mesmerized by it. Many are responding to a call from God and are coming to our churches in previously unheard of numbers. And so local parishes are becoming a kind of a center for this worldview meetup that sometimes translates into a long-term interest, which becomes catechism and the door for people to become Orthodox Christians themselves. It's a unique time. It's an extremely unique time due to the thorough secularization of our culture. Many people, without even knowing it, have been catechized from birth without knowing that they're being catechized in a secular worldview. Your text is extremely timely, addressing not just the beauties of catechism, but also the particularities of our time here in the West, and attempting to build some sort of connections between those who are coming from a secular worldview and helping them to uh, readjust kind of their personal and mental frameworks to understand the Christian faith. Can you tell us a little bit, Zach, why did you write this book? And at core, what are you trying to accomplish by it?
I ended up writing the book out of great need because when I was a teaching fellow at the Catholic University of America, I was given the Introduction to Theology course to teach for all incoming freshmen are required to take Introduction to Theology. And the course description was merely that we would cover the Old Testament, the New Testament, church fathers, and church history in one semester, which is, obviously impossible and ridiculous to even do one of those in one semester. And so I was in desperate need of texts to give to students to address all of these different issues. And they had to be concise and short and written at basically a high school reading level because they're incoming freshmen. And what I found is that it wasn't simply enough to rattle off the what of the Eucharist or the what of baptism. You can tell them the formulas, but they just stare at you and they don't really know why or why am I even in this class? And of course, the required introduction to theology class is a very hard sell. They all have to be
Sure.
there. And so I needed to find some texts that were direct and to the point, high school reading level, and made it relevant. Who cares that this Eucharist is Christ? What does that mean for me? Why do I care that God is a Trinity? What does that even mean? And so I started writing these short little what I called articles at the time just to fill in the gaps of the syllabus. And they liked it. And so I wrote more. And over several years of teaching this course, it turned into a book. And what was so beautiful about it was that it was tried by fire of freshmen. If they didn't like it, if they didn't get it, I rewrote the whole thing. I assigned reading summaries. I said, okay, summarize what you read and then give your commentary. And if all the reading summaries were hopelessly wrong, then I knew it was my fault and I rewrote it. So this text has really been tried in the fire of freshman courses.
Why do you think, brother, that uh, the freshmen that were coming into your university courses were so detached from traditional Christian concepts? What has happened in our culture such that a basic assumption and understanding of the Christian faith is so distant?
I think that we have a religion in this country, and the religion is secularism. And we learn this religion as inseparable from our culture. Religion, ultimately, if it's functioning properly, is inseparable from the culture. It informs the culture. We get that religion reinforced by how we live everything. So our religion is secularism, but the silly thing about secularism and modernity is that it assumes it's neutral. It says, no, no, this is the neutral worldview. This is not a religion. This is just how we're going to live our life. You can have your religion over there in the corner. And so I think that makes it invisible. I think we have a secular religion, a secular worldview that's very invisible, and it's primary. And so I had kids coming into this course who had been 12 years, K through 12, in private Catholic high schools, and then their parents sent them straight to CUA, unbroken Catholicism, all the way through their education. And I had a girl who fit this description. She didn't realize that the Eucharist was Christ. I said, where were you doing? Now, maybe she wasn't paying attention, but you would think that, okay, 12 years of religious instruction, things like that. And even the kids who, I'm picking on this one a little bit, but even the kids who are very pious, who knew all of these things, they came in, they want to know why. The way they asked their questions showed me that in their formation of their imagination, they could only think in secular categories.
Mm. What are some of those? Like, what would you say are some of the fundamental assumptions that are just like in the air and just in the bloodstream of all secular Americans?
I think there are many, but a big one is that we really have a hard time understanding the idea that the physical and the spiritual are inseparable. We really think that the physical world is primary. Science tells us real, verifiable truth about the world, and spiritual things are kind of, they're kind of unprovable. I can't really demonstrate them. And many people believe this at a very deep level. I think all of us at some level, because, for example, even people who believe in miracles, they'll still think of miracles along an Enlightenment definition, which is the laws of physics were temporarily suspended. That's not an orthodox ancient view of miracles. And when I start explaining what is a sacramental ancient way of viewing the world, it sounds like superstition. And if I say, hey, physical signs, colors, numbers, all of these things have intrinsic spiritual meaning, people go, okay, like astrology. So you believe in superstition.
Oh. Were you in the process of trying to communicate in a language that the young people could understand? Did you feel like you were successful? Did you feel like that you were able to help these young people come to an awareness of their unproven assumptions or their unacknowledged assumptions and to recalculate and calibrate their worldview?
Glory to God. The answer is yes. I cannot tell you how fulfilling it's been to continue to teach this book, because eventually that book became just most of the course. And then when I came to teach on the West Coast, I just taught a course that was just this book, Philosophy of Religion. Every single semester from the time I just started writing this book for about 5 years, at least one or two students have emailed me privately or taken me aside on the last day of class and told me, thank you. This book brought me back to my faith. This course made me realize what religion was about for the first time. I was about to walk away from the faith of my childhood, and this brought me back to it. You can't imagine these beautiful things that students have said to me. I've been so grateful to be a part of that.
I can't imagine, actually. I can't imagine. Maybe some of our listeners and those who are viewing can't imagine, but I can, and I'm not surprised to hear this. How did you get your title? And what does the title mean? Journey to Reality.
Yeah, so this is another, back to your question, this is another one of these secular assumptions that we get from the scientific revolution of the Enlightenment, which is that what you see and touch and feel and understand generally is reality. That you knock on the chair, boom, that's real. It's made of wood. We know what it is. This is real. And all these other supernatural things, they might be real, but they are sort of somewhere out there. And they're beyond the physical reality, and they're separate enough from it that they don't really need to, they're not necessary to understand the physical reality. And this happens a lot even in Western religion, where heaven is somewhere else. Father Strickland talks about this in his wonderful books, how the West lost the immanence of the faith that we have in our iconography, that heaven and paradise, they're far away. They're on the other side of purgatory. You'll see God when you die, but not now. Not now. You can't understand it now. And I think that relates to this loss of immanence, this primacy of the physical reality. And so what I've tried to do in this text is challenge that idea by saying, what you see and touch and feel, it's real-ish, and you are real-ish, but you and the world that you see are all on this progressive journey toward what reality really is. So I define reality as the kingdom of heaven, where God is, where he who is, he's the one who is, and we are sort of becoming man.
Yes. You call God the archie in your text. Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, so in Greek it just means the beginning. Modern Greek means beginning. In ancient Greek, it's used for uh, prefixes like archangel or archenemy. Means primary, means first, means all these sorts of abstract things. I specifically chose this word because I wanted to get away from the word God. Because, and you say that's weird. Well, here's the problem: is that modern people hear the word God, they hear the word Jesus, and they've had, 5 centuries or whatever of heretical beliefs about who this creature, being, entity is. Is he omnipotent Santa Claus spying on you, making a naughty nice list? I mean, that's what a lot of people think of God unconsciously. And I wanted to get more at the dramatic, radical concept of this entity, which is beyond being in some sense, which is reality itself, the source of all being and life, and then to understand the magnitude of the thing that we're talking about allows you to grasp some of Christianity's radical claims, which is A, that this thing became fully man and took our nature into it. That's an insane thing. And then offers us that real body to eat and to become part of. I mean, these are mind-boggling ideas that ancient Christianity was presenting. Huge scandal to the pagan philosophers who believed in the arche, but didn't think that it could possibly become a man. That's ridiculous. And I wanted to recapture some of that original scandal that the Christianity brought to pagan philosophy, to the modern world, to a world who is tired of hearing, well, God says no, and God likes this, and God doesn't like that,
Yes.
as though he were just a petty deity like Zeus.
Hmm. The scandal of Christianity to Greek paganism in the first centuries of the church, which was something that our apologists and catechists labored to address, to build bridges towards, seems even small compared to the scandal of Christianity to the secular world today, to the secular West, which has an even more radically anti-Christian agenda. What's the what's the consequence? You know, I think about my role as a priest and my brothers, thousands of us all over the world who are trying to help people know God. I mean, that's the baseline purpose of being a priest. When I took my first parish assignment, and I was nervous, and I asked my spiritual father, "What should I do?" He said to me, he said, "Habibi, don't worry. Teach them about God." That's what we priests primarily are doing, right? We live with God and we teach people about God. I'm thinking today we're trying to do this to people who are coming from the secular world, who are deeply ingrained with this secular worldview. St. John Chrysostom, in his most famous text, his 6 books on the priesthood, he says that the responsibility of a priest is to study 2 things: to study the scriptures, to know the word of God, but also to be dedicated to studying his own culture so that he can apply the scriptures to the people of his time and function as a bridge to help them understand the truth. It seems to me that this is something that you're laboring to do and you have done in this text. What is the consequence, Dr. Porcu, if we don't do that? What will happen to those people who are becoming Christians and are attracted to the church if we don't translate our orthodoxy into terms that a person who is coming from the secular background can comprehend? What's the consequence?
Well, the one that jumps out to me, of course, is the shallow soil where the roots don't go down very far, and then the plants die, which is how that looks like is so many parishes where, and I saw this too a lot at Catholic University. I had Catholic kids coming to Catholic University, but they were already in the process of losing their faith, and a lot of them didn't even really know it, actually, which was the weirdest thing to see. And it's because, again, when our minds are formed with secular thinking, it doesn't matter what facts or assertions that you tell them to hold on to. If they don't have a framework in which those truths about God give them a working picture of reality, then it's just a little sort of isolated thing. And they have to decide, well, am I going to hold on to this or not, given that my whole lifestyle, my whole frame of mind, the whole way I see the world is going in another direction. It's kind of like the medium is the message thing.
Yes.
Just use of a medium changes how you think, regardless of the content in the medium. And I think that's true, very true for cultures. And so you can send your kids to Greek private school or anything, but if they have a smartphone and their predominant way of seeing the world is shaped by secular categories, then it's a losing battle.
Mhm. How does the cultivation of the sacramental worldview, and maybe you could articulate that a little bit more for our listeners. How does that take place in the experience of people in the church? Exactly what is this sacramental worldview that you address, and how is it cultivated?
There are a lot of people, I think, so reading is helpful. Obviously, I think reading the fathers, the primary sources is what brought me into the church. So many people discover orthodoxy online. Reading is good, thinking, arguing, all these things are good. But what I always tell catechumens is you need to be in the liturgy. The liturgy is your catechism, because when we're talking about, so here's another I'll keep answering your first question. Another secular category is to divide the subjective from the objective. People think it's the same thing with the physical and spiritual. People think, well, there's the objective facts. I can look those up. I know what they are. And then there's the subjective kind of, and that's personal opinion, artistic experience, religious experience goes in this category. And so you don't know any other way. Like, I guess, well, I'm going to have my own feelings about religion, or I'm going to go look up a bunch of facts and argue and do all this intellectual religion stuff. But neither of those are really how we know the world. We know the world in a third way, a participatory way, just the way that you know family or a person or a relationship, anything like that. And what I mean by that is you have to know it by entering into it. You have to experience it. So I think in the text I give this example, when the apostles are first discovering the Christ, and Andrew and then they go to Nathaniel and they say, "We found the Christ." And he's very skeptical, obviously, and he says all these things, and they don't argue with him on the one hand, and they don't say, "Well, that's just your opinion." They tell him, "Come and see, come participate." And so you
Mm.
must go and participate. You have to taste and see, and that's in the services of the church, which is connected to this bigger sacramental idea that the sacraments are mysteries. That's Latin for mysterion. That's just what sacrament means. And what we mean in the church by mystery is not something that's categorically unknowable. We mean something that can only be known by participation. You have to enter into it. So you can know Christ if you eat him.
Sure. Instead of knowing about him.
Correct. Yeah.
Hmm. It seems to me that we're in this unique moment where so many have tested the secular waters. They've been drinking them for a long time and are finding them unsatisfactory to quench the thirst of their deeper desires. So even though they're drinking them maybe voluminously, it's not slaking their thirst. And so they're coming to the church to experience something beyond, categorically beyond what they've been living in. They're coming into the church and being overwhelmed, initially overwhelmed by much which seems very beyond them and can be very disorienting. How would you suggest, as a catechist yourself, how would you suggest to people to orient their minds about let's say their initial year? How would you suggest that they think about the process? How accomplishable is it? What should they expect? Could you comment about some of that?
The process
Of acclimating to being a traditional Christian, to acclimating to be a member of the church and shedding shedding what they've tasted and has not satisfied them. Um, but this process, the journey, is a journey, right? It's not a one time I walk through the door and now I have it.
yeah, that's so well said, because we want to, so many people, and myself included, converting from Protestantism to Orthodoxy, the initial reaction is, I finally found the correct theology and now I'm done. And you realize quickly that the only thing you found is the bottom of the mountain. uh, and so I think patience is such an important thing, really coming as a child, like Christ says, come as the little children, and children know nothing, and they sort of accept this. They're very innocent, and pure about it. They have no adult complications in the way they see the world. And so I think coming with the humility of a child and accepting that this is a journey, this is a participatory process. I've joined a family like a baby, and I now need to be shaped into a real member of that family over decades, is an essential part of the process. Thinking that you're done, thinking that you've arrived, thinking you know everything now. In my own experience, I feel like once I hit the 10-year mark of being Orthodox, I finally felt like I understood the forms of Orthodoxy, and I realized I was just beginning to sort of understand the content. And I went, okay, well, now it's going to be another 10 years of me trying to get a grasp on the content of what Orthodoxy is saying to me now. So be patient, and don't rush, and be humble.
Beautiful advice. Brother, how can those who are watching follow you? How can they learn more about you? And also, how can they access this book?
The book is at our parish bookstore. Come to St. Andrew. It's that. But it's on Amazon, and it's on Ancient Faith Store. They're both constantly in print. They're there and easy to get. Uh, it's also on Audible if people like that. Uh, I have a website where I'm kind of organizing what's going on with me. It's just my full name, zacharyporcu.com. People have asked me to start putting more things on my YouTube channel. We'll see how that goes.
Will we
But
have a volume two? Is there more coming?
there is more coming. That I was going to say, Ancient Faith has asked me to. I've pitched a sequel to them, which is about social issues. So it's, a lot of my students read this text and they said, "We love it. It's great. We get it. However, how do we live in this world of transgenderism and homosexuality and technology and politics and all the issues people want to talk about? How do we actually deal with that?" And I said, okay, well, I'll write you another book. So that's in process. I can't say
Oh,
when, but it's coming. Yeah, thank you.
well, God bless you, dear brother. Thank you so much for your time, and may God inspire your work for the benefit of many people who are coming to the church.
Thank you, Father.
blessed Lord's Day to all of you, brothers and sisters.
For November 17th, on which we commemorate Saint Gregory of Tours.
As we begin this new course in the St. John Chrysostom Catechetical School.
Now available on both Apple and Google Play stores.